Thank you, colleagues. Welcome, good evening, councillors, and I'm not sure if there are any members of the public, but if you're here and I can't see you, welcome to you as well. My name, as I'm sure you'll know, is Councillor Rachel Eden. I'm your mayor and I chair these council meetings. First of all, this evening, I do have some announcements to make. As you're aware, the rules on masks have been relaxed, but with COVID still very prevalent in our local community, I would ask all councillors present to wear masks during the meeting, except if you have an exemption, of course, or if you are addressing the council. I'd also like to inform everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live on the internet and will be available for repeat viewing, should you wish to do so, on the council's webcasting site. More seriously, however, it is the first meeting of the council since the terrible events of the 15th of December, and I think we should remember the residents of Row Court, where 2 people tragically lost their lives and others were injured in what was a truly catastrophic and shocking fire. I'm sure I speak for everyone in the council when I say we would all like to express our condolences and deepest sympathy to all those affected, but also to show appreciation to the organisations and individuals, including the emergency services and our own council staff, who rallied around to provide support and comfort to residents at this very distressing time. I would like to ask you all to join me in a minute's silence, please. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I also need to inform you that the monitoring officer has exercised his delegation on the recommendation of the Liberal Democrat group leader to appoint Councillor O'Connell to the Policy Committee in place of Councillor Devine. Thank you, Councillor Connell, for taking up that role. I also have a number of apologies this evening. Councillors David Absalom, Councillor Debs Absalom, Councillor Challenger, Councillor Davis, Councillor McElroy, Councillor Maskell, Councillor Pearce, Councillor Raj Singh, Councillor White, Councillor Jay Williams and Councillor Woodward. I'm sure anyone would like to wish them well if they are ill with their recovery. So now we move on to the substantive agenda. Do any councillors have any declarations of interests they wish to make? I can't see any, so thank you. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of November. Can I sign these as a correct record? Thank you, Council. There were no petitions received, and we have no public questions this evening. So the next item is councillor questions. I'm going to ask Councillor Whittam to ask Councillor White's question to Councillor Ennis, the Lead Councillor for Adult Social Care.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Care work is essential but underpaid and under-recognised. Unfortunately, many are leaving this sector. How many care packages are waiting to be picked up by care agencies at the moment? And how does this compare to last year? Also, what is the council doing to retain care workers? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Whittam. Asking a question on behalf of Councillor White. As of the 21st of January 2022, there are 16 care packages waiting to be picked up by care agencies, whereas on the 21st of January 2021 there were 8. There are a number of factors contributing to this increase, including the volume of people coming out of hospital needing care and the number of care staff absent due to sickness. The increase, therefore, isn't directly attributable to vacancies in the sector. However, the Council is committing to boosting staff numbers and retaining care staff and has been working closely with providers to look at ways to achieve this. This includes, in line with our commitment to the Ethical Care Charter, we require our care providers to pay their staff the real living wage to ensure they receive fair salaries. Passporting workforce grants from government directly to providers to use to recruit and retain staff, allowing providers to use the funds in the best way to support their staff. Asking providers to use infection control fund allocations to pay for parking passes to ensure that staff have the flexibility to use cars where needed and not worry about parking fines. Asking providers to use their infection control fund allocations to pay staff wages when they have to isolate due to COVID to ensure staff are not losing out on their wages. Sharing with providers evidence of good practice from around the country about how to retain staff to ensure that there is shared learning. We are helping 6 home care and support framework providers with overseas recruitment. Providers have to bid for the funds. A key part of the bid was how providers will support new staff who enter the country and build links to Reading's wider communities to ensure they become part of the community. The Council is intending to use the Workforce Recruitment and Retention Fund to benefit frontline carers by offering monetary rewards to staff working in the sector for their work during COVID. I'm disappointed that the government does not recognise the importance and dedication of care workers in the way that we in this Labour Council do. Carers make a hugely meaningful and observable positive difference to individual lives on a daily basis. And that's exactly the message at the heart of our current care recruitment campaign and our social media thank you campaign, which was suggested by one of our providers. I really hope that the forthcoming NHS integrated care system will increase the profile of care work as a career, because our health service is as dependent on carers as it is on nurses and doctors. With my colleagues, I'll be pressing for the NHS and the government to recognise the value of carers through proper, secure funding. I know that creating long-term sustainability in the sector, just as this council has always sought to do, even with more limited resources, is the right thing for our community, for our residents and for our carers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Is there a supplementary?
No, thank you.
I'm not seeing anyone else indicating. Thank you, Councillor Ennis. I'd like to ask Councillor Whittam to ask a question, again on behalf of Councillor White, to the Lead Councillor for Health, Wellbeing and Sport, Councillor Hoskin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our residents who are dependent on drugs and alcohol are struggling and are very vulnerable indeed. I understand the number of people in specialist drug and alcohol treatment has increased dramatically since Change, Grow, Live took over the surface. Please can the Lead Councillor provide me with the latest yearly figures from 2018-19 onwards? How is this increase being managed without a reduction in capacity and quality? Thank you.
Councillor Hoskin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor White for asking the question, or several as Councillor Whittam asked it, but Councillor White has taken a keen interest in this issue. It's an important issue. I know that he shares my anger at the major and wrong-headed government funding cuts that local public health services have suffered in England since not long after responsibility was transferred from the NHS to councils. The respected Health Foundation calculated that government public health grant to councils in England has been cut by 24% in real terms per capita between 2015-16 and 2021-22. It's in this context that councils have had to grapple with how to maintain effective services with smaller budgets. In response to the first part of the question, the numbers in treatment are, from 18-19 onwards, 999, the next year 997, and in 2021, 1,147. Change, Grow, Live, the charity commissioned by the council to provide these services in Reading, are working with people 18 plus to address their drug and or alcohol needs. That dependency, that could be misread, address their dependency issues. Reading Public Health and CGL Reading are working together to address increasing demand and the resulting capacity issues which have been exacerbated by the pandemic. The service, in common with many others, has also experienced challenges in respect of clinical staff recruitment. CGL Reading are currently recruiting 4 additional posts through their charitable funds to maintain a quality service, whilst we renegotiate the upcoming extension of the contract in October of this year. Reading Public Health will be carrying out an extensive needs assessment in early 2023 to ensure we understand the current needs and level of unmet needs for this service, and this will help us to develop a new local strategy. The government announced a new 10-year drug strategy, Harm to Hope, in December of 21, in which additional funding is expected over the next 3 years to strengthen drug and alcohol treatment services. At this time, Reading's allocation is not known, but our needs assessment and local strategy will drive forward our work alongside how any additional monies will be spent in the delivery of a partnership approach to support people to become drug and or alcohol free. For the benefit of the people needing advice, support and services, it is essential that we have more opportunity for prevention and early intervention. This leads to better outcomes for the individual, reduces the hidden harms associated with dependency, and in the longer term reduces demand on the range of services required to deal with the direct and associated consequences. It is important, therefore, that we do not only consider those in treatment, but have a greater understanding of how we can help people earlier. The Drug and Alcohol Service is funded largely by the Public Health grant, but also, to a degree, the Police and Crime Commissioner's budget. The Police and Crime Commissioner has announced in November of 2021 funding cuts across the budget for Reading, which will result in a 47.2% budget reduction for Reading. It's actually slightly over 50%, I don't know the figure, slightly different, for Reading over the next 3 years. In Reading, 55% of the Police and Commissioner funding is used to fund the current criminal justice pathway within the local drug and alcohol service, and the new reduced funding formula will greatly impact the drug and alcohol treatment service delivery offer in the future. Public Health is working with partners to try and explore alternative options, but the risk is that this reduction in service is likely to have a negative impact on the people who need support and the local community, particularly in terms of crime, but also in terms of health improvements, reduced drug and alcohol-related deaths, lower levels of bloodborne infection, and wider social harm. So in answer to the second part of Councillor White's question, the increase in treatment has been achieved through strong partnership working and the dedication and hard work of workers at CGL, but it's clear that there are major challenges facing this service.
Thank you, Councillor Hoskin. Is there a supplementary?
No, thank you.
And I'm not seeing anyone else indicating. Thank you, colleagues. That concludes council questions for this evening. So we move on to item 7, the approval of the local council tax support scheme and council tax base for 2022 to 2023. Can I ask Councillor Brock to move?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, can I just congratulate Councillor O'Connell on her appointment as the Liberal Democrat Group Leader, and just say how disappointing it is. I will no longer have Councillor Devine as an opponent at Policy Committee, but his service has always been exemplary on that committee. And although I shall miss our heads-to-heads, I look forward to future ones with Councillor O'Connell in his place. Also, congratulations to Councillor Whittam, who I think has deposed Councillor White in a coup of some description, seeking his opportunity to move up and forward. And the Conservative group just looks slightly smaller than I remember. But, Madam Mayor, this is an administrative report, of course, but I find it personally far from boring, but that says more about me than anything else. The council tax base is, of course, at the centre of our annual financial planning, but it's also at the centre of our partners' financial planning for the Police and Crime Commissioner and for the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service. And indeed, I know that we have often been one of the most accurate authorities in establishing our base, and I recall a situation not so long ago when everybody else had grossly overestimated, and it caused some financial planning problems for the Fire and Rescue Service, so I'm pleased that we haven't put them in that position. Table 2 in the papers captures this fundamental reality of Reading, which is the vast majority of our properties are band C and below. But of course, when we talk about council tax, we use band D equivalents. My point being is I do not begrudge this fact, but it does present a certain challenge in the Reading context. All the same, we would recognise on this side that the cost of living is rising, energy costs are increasing, we still have, at the moment anyway, a prospective national insurance rise to come. So I'm very pleased that we have this year been able to enhance our council tax support scheme to look after those who are on the very lowest incomes in our community, offering them support as family budgets will become tighter. Also pleased to draw attention on page 13 to the fact that this council operates an empty homes premium. It's one of the things that we can do to try to encourage people to not leave homes sat empty around the borough, because not only are there a blight on neighbourhoods, but we know that we have a shortage of homes. That's all I think I wanted to say, and I remove the recommendations as printed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brock. Councillor McEwen, do you wish to second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second and reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. I have Councillor Stevens wishing to speak.
Are we working? We are. So, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think it's the first time I have addressed the Council in the last just short of 2 years from the actual floor of the Council, as opposed to your lofty position as you are now, Madam Mayor. It also is not lost on me that I have a slightly different view of Council proceedings as I'm sitting here. And I would just like to take the opportunity to say I am extremely grateful to the Leader of the Conservatives opposite, who gave me a lot of support and very best wishes, and my friends on the far side who've been so kind. And I've been absolutely overwhelmed by the generous reception and friendship of all the members of the Labour Party who have been so kind to me also. Thank you very much. And I do hope, and obviously there's no certainty, that from this side of the floor I might be able to carry on serving the people of Reading for some time to come, I hope. With that said, the base and the support scheme, a couple of things I think worth mentioning about it. First of all, is that the council tax base is increasing, and that's a good thing. And that's a function of probably two things that are going on. One is the number of new homes being built in the borough. And in fact, only this week, the council announced that Reading is surpassing its target of new homes being built. And that is good. However, it's also worth noting that was mentioned in the press release, 43% of the new homes are one-bedroom flats, which is obviously what the market is demanding, but also we do need more family-sized homes. And we have RC asking developers to also look at that priority for the council, that we need family homes, not just small flats. But the fact that they're increasing the number of homes in the borough is good. Also, we're expecting there to be a reduction in the number of claimants for council tax support scheme. And that's also good because it anticipates that as we recover from COVID, also the number of people obviously needing support like this reduces, and the number of people contributing to council tax increases. So overall, we're saying that although obviously expenditure carries on having to increase, it is borne by a greater number of council taxpayers, so the load for each individual household is just that little bit smaller, we hope. Good news. And lastly, on the support scheme itself, the scheme has been updated, it's been streamlined, hopefully will require less officer time so they can be deployed in other things, and also more help from for those that need it. It's more generous. So I'm very happy to support the motion, and for me tonight, it's all good news. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Yes. Councillor Skeets.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to just respond, if I may, to the few words Councillor Stevens has just made. I think at the time the decision was made by Councillor Stevens to change parties from the Conservatives over to Labour, we put out a press release, and I think my press release put it perfectly. We are indeed, I certainly am, as your friend as well as colleague, was saddened to see you make that move, of course. However, I understood the reasons why, and that is why I supported you and will continue to support you. You are a man of great integrity, and you have served Thames Ward well in the almost 18 years you've been a councillor there. I have known you for many, many years, certainly 18 plus, and I've never known being on this, whilst you've been on this council, I've never known not working with you, although I've been on this council coming up to 26, but during your time on this council, I've enjoyed every moment of working with you. I've learnt from you, and we've had lots of fun and laughter, and I'm sure the rest of my group would agree with me on that you have been an absolute asset to this group. And the fact that the decision was taken for you not to be reselected, I thought was a tragedy for the Conservative group, personally. However, you've made your decision now, and your future lies with the Labour Party. I thank the Labour Party for giving David, I will call it a home, although he's worth more than that. You're lucky to have him, because he brings with him a lot of experience, and he is a loyal person, and if you have him, you know you've got him as a friend as well as an excellent colleague. I hadn't planned to say this evening, so everything I'm saying comes from my heart, and of course the goodwill that I have towards him. So I'm pleased that he's going to continue in politics, and I hope him and wish for him the very best in the future. And we, his friends on this side, support you, David, and we wish you well for the future. Thank you. Now, moving on to, and I thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to just say those few words in response.
I am slightly indulging everyone here.
I know, but I think it has to be said, okay? So, coming back to this report, we, of course, it's been to policy, and we agreed it then, and we are agreeing it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak about the council tax support scheme? Or indeed about how much they like Councillor Stevens? Councillor Ennis.
Yeah, I just want to make a few words to actually support this. I mean, it was with great disappointment that we struggled to improve it in the past due to our finances, but I think it's a really good moment now, in the moment of problems, to increase that and to send the message to people who are struggling, residents who are struggling out there, who will now benefit. We in our own wards know. We got an example in Southcote of an individual who came along to our surgeries in the past and has struggled and felt that this was an important issue and lobbied over a number of years. So we say to him that we were regretfully not being able to do it in the past, but we're going to do it now. The first opportunity that we had to improve the scheme, because that's the people that we want to represent, and that's why I very much support this, and going forward as well towards more permanency. But of course, finances are extremely difficult. They've been difficult over a period of time, but this is a priority that we feel first opportunity to come back, so very much support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. I don't think I see anyone else indicating, so Councillor McEwen, would you like to exercise your right now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This annual report tracks to Council each year, and I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank officers for this very comprehensive report, and really to thank the Revs and Bens team for their work, particularly throughout the pandemic, in a period of such uncertainty, where we've seen grants which have been provided to small businesses and self-employed, and also against the backdrop of the continued steady collection rate of council tax to ensure that we are able to function as a council. The council tax support scheme, which previous councillors mentioned, will be of huge benefit to our residents, and I echo the comments of other speakers, and I'm happy to second this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor McEwen. Councillor Block, do you wish to sum up the discussion?
I could have sworn you just said block, Madam Mayor. I need to say, well, I bet it made for good television at least, right? An unusual debate for a council tax base report, but an enjoyable one. Councillor McEwen's entirely right. We should be grateful to the work that the Revs and Bens team have put in throughout the pandemic. You know, they have been on, you know, in the background, supporting residents, but also, just as importantly, getting those business grants out of the door quickly and efficiently, drawing up plans for additional restrictions grants, and indeed one has been promoted today. I really want to celebrate the work that the Revs and Bens team do, because it's quite easy to miss it, because it is that background administrative function, but it has a very important effect on people's lives. And with the changes to the council tax support scheme, I'm pleased that it will have a more and more positive effect on people's lives, for those at least who are in support of, in receipt of support. But nothing else to add, Madam Mayor, so I suggest we proceed to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Brock. And could I ask all those in favour of the motion to show? Thank you. Were there any against? Any abstentions? No, I think that was unanimous. Thank you, colleagues. We'll move on now to the Councillor Allowances scheme for 2022 to 2023. This again is one for the leader to propose, so Councillor Brock, could you move?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing fundamentally changes on the allowances. It's the same scheme that we set back in 2019. But I'm really pleased that this year we bring forward, and with the recommendation of the remuneration panel as well, a properly established parental leave scheme. In the past, we have, of course, had councillors who have taken parental leave, but we've always exercised it on an ad hoc basis, and I would like to think that's worked okay. And I know in conversations with yourself, Madam Mayor, that you spoke about your own experience, and I know that your erstwhile ward colleague, Kelly Edwards, most recently took a period of parental leave, and I think we've made it work, and I think it's been fine, but it is right and proper that we would establish it properly. The only thing I would add, Madam Mayor, is that I hope that in the not too distant future, the government will recognise that all of this could be made much simpler if it were put on a statutory footing. And it is truly shameful, I think, that councillors and members of Parliament are not able to access the same statutory protections and provisions around parental leave that others rightly are. And I would call on the government to remedy this situation at the soonest opportunity. But nothing to add beyond that, so I move the recommended action as in my motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I second and reserve, Chair. Madam Mayor. Sorry.
Very efficient, Councillor Page, thank you. I have Councillor Hacker who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me whilst I stand, because I'm right at the back, and it's easier to see you when I talk about this. So I'm speaking about the parental leave policy, and I'm going to share a bit of my own personal experience and why I think that Reading Council adopting this is going to be so helpful for parents going forward, whether they are adoptive parents or birth parents. So I have two children, a boy who's 14 and a boy who's 11. And my 11-year-old, despite the best laid plans, arrived literally weeks after I became a councillor in 2010, nearly 10 weeks premature. So there I was, a brand new councillor, really wanting to do my very best, represent my constituents, attend as many council meetings as possible, and all of a sudden I'm thrown into complete disarray by this tiny, tiny person in an incubator, and all the fallout from his surprising and emergency arrival. The Labour group were fantastic. They were very supportive, but I had nothing in law to protect me. If I'd been at another council with another group, I may not have had the same kind of support. So when I saw this was coming forward, I was delighted. But as Councillor Brock said, it's a real shame that this is having to be done on a voluntary basis. If we want our council chambers up and down the country and Parliament to represent the people of Reading and all the other places around the UK, truly represent them in age group, in gender, in sexuality and religion, we need to have these kind of protections enshrined in law. It's really good, actually, that this policy goes slightly above and beyond what normal maternity leave does, and that you do get extra leave if you do have a premature child. When I had my youngest, my maternity leave kicked in the day he was born. It took into no account the weeks he was in special care or the real difficult situation we were both in physically and me mentally with this early and very traumatic arrival. So I just want to speak really commending Reading Borough Council for adopting this policy and also hoping that other councils up and down the UK do the exact same thing so they can protect parents and they can protect the co-parents and allow them to spend those precious first few weeks and months with their child when they're recovering from birth, recovering from becoming parents, and anyone who's become a parent knows it's a bit of a shock to the system despite how many books you've read. And really, as a parent, we don't need any more guilt piling upon our shoulders when we don't have a supportive policy like this. So I commend this policy and I'm glad to see it here today. But just to add, I don't plan to use it in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Hacker. And I know the Mayor doesn't normally make personal statements, but I do remember very well bumping into you in the Royal Berkshire Hospital when we both just given birth within a few hours of each other. And, you know, at that point, it was very unclear to us what our rights were as councillors. So I'm personally very grateful to Councillor Brock and Councillor Page for moving and seconding this motion. Councillor Skeets, you were indicating.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, we too on this side have had expectant mums and mums that have obviously with newborns and asking whether or not, how do they feed their newborns, etc. Do they have to leave the chamber? What do they have to do? In fact, I remember when I was in your position, Madam Mayor, when there was a Liberal Democrat councillor who had a baby and was breastfeeding in the chamber, and I thought, yes, you know, and recently it's been in the Commons too, in Parliament. This subject's been brought up, so I support everything that Councillor Brock has said on this, and so we will be supporting this, and also Councillor Hacker will be supporting this part of it. Well, we're supporting all of it, to be fair. But as we were just talking about that, you know, I would also like to pay tribute to the remuneration panel, because they give up their time to it's a very difficult position we councillors are in, so we're grateful to them for the time they give to look at this. And we never ever want to fall, I was saying to Councillor Page only today in discussion, we never ever want to fall into the trap that we had found ourselves in year on year, not looking at an increase, and then of course it builds up because we're out of sync. So it's right that we have the panel to look at it. It takes out from us, so we're not giving ourselves an increase. It's done independently, but I think it's right at the moment with the recommended action that we're happy to agree. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skeets. I have Councillor O'Connell.
Thank you, and I agree with the new policy on parental leave. I think it's a marvellous idea. I thank the councillor for sharing her personal experiences with us. It really brings home the importance of these kind of things, and I too hope that councils across the country will adopt similar policies. We will support all of this. We completely understand why in the current climate we can't be seen to be benefiting at the expense of the residents we represent. I do worry, though, as I know that many of my colleagues around the chambers will, about attracting a diverse representation of people to become councillors, because we do have one of the lowest as far as I'm aware, I haven't done extensive research on this, you might correct me, but I think we have one of the lowest allowances that's given to councillors. I personally only work 4 days a week so that I can give 1 day a week to casework so that I can do it effectively whilst also bringing up a family. And what I receive as a councillor doesn't cover the wages that I forfeit. I'm happy to do that. I'm not asking for any sympathy. And I know others around the chamber will be making similar financial sacrifices to be able to represent their communities effectively. I just hope, like I'm sure everyone does, occasionally we get muddled up with MPs and people think that local elected councillors are on vast amounts of money, and whilst none of us are going to sort of publicise the amount of money we get, it's not an MP's wage. We're not getting tens of thousands of pounds. And I guess I kind of hope that the press might acknowledge the fact that in the 10 years I think I've been serving, we have never once voted ourselves a pay rise. And again, this year, it seems to be unanimous that we will not vote ourselves a pay rise.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connell. Does anyone else wish to speak? In that case, I'll call Councillor Page to exercise his right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I firstly welcome the comments from Councillors Hacker and Skeets in support of the parental leave policy. This has been a long time coming, and as Councillor Hacker rightly said, and as is spelt out in the LGA paper on page 45, there is at present no legal right to parental leave of any kind for people in elected public office. And that is quite shameful, but it reflects the low opinion and status for local government accorded by central government in this country over many decades. And it is to be hoped that if there is ever any genuine devolution, it will also be reflected in the powers and status for local authorities, and that will obviously impact on the terms and conditions and the need to encourage a broad cross-section of people to serve their local communities. I must correct Councillor O'Connell. We are now, if what you had said had been said a couple of years ago, it would have been correct. But we finally bit the bullet and implemented increases in the special responsibility allowances, which make us about average. The basic allowance of 8,000 and whatever it is also average, and therefore your comments are no longer accurate. And I can
Thank you for correcting me.
That's all right. No, I mean, and the other point I would make is that as part of the package that we agreed pretty well unanimously on the authority, our allowances are being indexed to the local government pay settlement. And so once that has been concluded, at whatever percentage level, I can't remember where we're at now, I think it's around 2%, 1.75, thank you, then that will be applied to our allowances. And that indexation is automatic each year. So that, again, is a major change to the policy. It's a change that brought us in line with most other local authorities. Reading has had a lamentably hair-shirt approach to allowances over many years until the recent changes. And that brings me finally to endorse the comments that Councillor Skeets made about the work of the remuneration panel. They don't get any remuneration at all. They get their travel expenses covered if they claim them. I don't believe any of them do because they all live locally. The 4 who are serving are listed in the report on page 39, and at least 2 of them are getting on a bit in years. They're still fully mentally compos mentis, but I don't think they like to be serving for much longer, and we may well be looking for replacements in the next few years. But notwithstanding that, all 4 of them have done sterling service to us. And, Chair, I would hope that as part of it, I don't know whether it's that we would also, is it in the, I can't remember the resolution, but if it isn't, I think we should add our thanks to the 4 members of the panel for the work they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that an amendment, Councillor Page? No. Okay, we just take it as read and minute it, I think. Thank you. And at this point, I should probably make clear, though I don't think anyone in the room requires at the moment, if anyone does ever need to breastfeed while I'm chairing a meeting, well, I've done it numerous times myself in a council meeting, so my interpretation of standing orders is that would be fine. Thank you very much. Councillor Brock, do you wish to sum up the debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to everybody who's spoken. Thank you especially to Councillor Hacker for sharing her experiences and for your additions to that, Madam Mayor. It is good that we've reached that average level of allowances. I think that's appropriate. It's good that in recent years we've managed to take the political football out of this issue, and I hope that helps to encourage people to come forward and sort of understand that, that these are reasonable allowances for the reasonable sacrifices that we make. Of course, as the panel have always pointed out, we do expect some element of service on the council to be on a voluntary basis. This is the panel's assertion, and I think that's understandable. We're not here to make money. We are here to be public servants, and quite right that the remuneration would reflect that. Actually, no, I don't really have anything else to add. We'll thank the panel appropriately. I would be concerned if any of them had claimed travel allowances this year because they met online, but otherwise, happy to proceed to the vote, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brock. Could all those in favour please show? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? I think again that was unanimous. Thank you, colleagues. That concludes our business for this evening. Councillors, may I thank you for your attendance and for a very courteous meeting, and I ask you to take your time in leaving the auditorium. Thank you.